Hello everyone and welcome to this 8th video that will be part of the series about the Go programming language, and today we're going to look at user input. So in other words, getting input from the users from the terminal. So how can we do that? Well, first of all, we will have, for the first time in this video series, we will have to import some other packages. And these packages that we will need are the following. So just where you have the import statement up there, just include other than thumped, also include bufio and os. So we will need these two other packages. And we will use these two other packages to get user input via a scanner. So to set up a scanner, which means basically something that will read input from the user from the terminal, we will need to, it might look maybe a little intimidating in the eyes of a beginner, because we will need a little more lines of code than maybe you're used to at this point, but don't worry, because I'm sure all these lines of code will actually make sense. So first of all, we need to create a scanner object, and this scanner object is basically responsible for scanning the input of the user. So we can call it maybe scan, and then this scanner object, actually scanner, maybe it's more readable like this, and then let's we basically gonna create an instance of a scanner by writing bufio.newScanner, and then inside of the new scanner we're gonna put in os.stdin, which stands for standard input. So we're gonna create a scanner, an instance of a scanner, and specifying that we're basically passing in standard input. So maybe some of these words might not make sense to you yet, so for example such as stdin, but maybe if you come from, for example, from C or from other languages, maybe you already understand what these words of course mean. Well, the second thing that we need to do is actually perform a scan operation, meaning that now we want to read what the user will write in the console, and we're going to do this via the scan method. So we're going to say scanner.scan, and once we have done this, we can actually now read the user input. So I'm going to say user input, and then we're going to set it equal to scanner.text. And now we can, for example, test what we did and print out the user input that we got with this scanner. So let's try and run it. So for example, if we for example write hello world, we will get hello world back. So actually let's just change a little things. For example, let's remove the space here, let's add a new line just to make it a little bit more pleasant looking. And well, at this point we see that this user input scanner actually works, so we're able to get input from the user and elaborate it in our program. But as we saw, also because I included this %s here, the type of data that we got was a string, because as I mentioned also in the first video, the data that gets exchanged between the user and the program inside the terminal is of course strings. So when we get data from the user, we're getting a string. Okay, but what about, for example, sometimes we might want to have someone input some values which are not strings, but maybe, for example, they're integers. One example of this could be maybe through writing a calculator application where we want to get a number of numbers and then sum them, or for example, multiply them. And then we would not want to have a string, of course, because we want to apply to these values the arithmetic operations that we saw in the 6th video. So how can we do this? In order to do this, we're going to need another package, and this is the strconv package. And as the name suggests, this package is responsible for typecasting, also known as type conversion. In particular, it implements conversion to and from string representations of data types. So for example, if we have a data type that is in a string format and we want to convert it to an integer, we can do it with this library. And this is specifically what we wanted to do in the example that I made above of a calculator application. So we get an input that is a string and we want to convert it into an integer. So at this point, the first function that we're going to look at is the ParseInt function. Actually going to look at a couple of functions, and this is the ParseInt function alongside the ParseUint function. And you might remember that in the video where we talked about arithmetic operations, we also talked about the difference between integers and unsigned integers, uint and int in short. And well, what these things do is precisely that. So they take a string and then they parse the string into an integer. So for now, let's forget about the input, but let's define two variables of string type. So for example a, and set it equal to for example 5, and another one, and so let's set it equal to 8. So then the way in which we can convert, let's call it a1 and b1, these variables into integers is by using the following function. So first thing is we're gonna refer to the package we included, which is strconv. Then I'm gonna say ParseInt with capital first letters in both of the words that comprise the function, and then I'm gonna pass parse 3 arguments. The first one is the string, in this case a. The second one is the base of the representation. In this case, we want it to be represented in base 10. And then the third argument is the bit size. So let's suppose that we want just a regular 64-bit integer. So let's now do the same for b, and so let's just replace the b's with a's. And now for example, let's sum them and set equals c equal to a1 plus b1. And now let's just print c. Let's see what happens. So go run input.go. All right, yes, this is another important thing that you have to remember, and that is this ParseInt function actually returns 2 values. So the first one is the actual number, the second one is a possible error. So in this case, we're gonna actually have to insert also the error, so let's call it error 1 and error 2, and let's print them in order to later we'll also see a way to just, you could say, forget about them without making a Golang throw an error, because we know that in Golang, whenever we don't use a for example, let's say 23, okay, and then as you can see, the error gave nil because there was no error, the operation was successful, but we now got our sum because 5 plus 8 is actually 13. So we were able to convert from string to integer. And now we can see that we can do the same, but this time with unsigned integers. So we can say ParseUint, and let's look at what happens when we do this. So we get still 13. But we can try, for example, and change the sign of one of these values, and let's see what happens in this case. As you can see, we get parsing -5 invalid syntax. So we got an error. This is why we need to basically we need to decompact the output of the ParseUint and ParseInt functions, because whenever something goes wrong, it gets passed to the error message that is passed as a second output of the function. But as I mentioned before, there's actually a way to kind of discard these error messages and just get the result of the function. So, and also in the way in which we're going to discard them is by putting just a underscore like this. And by putting an underscore, we're basically kind of ignoring the error value, and in such a way that doesn't throw an error. So let's see what happens. As you can see, we get 31 in the output, and as you can see, it works out because 23 plus 8 is actually 31. So the result checks out. And so these are the first functions that are very important to look at of the strconv library, but there are actually more. And one of the other important functions that we want to see is the ParseFloat. So ParseFloat function. And the ParseFloat function just does the same, but does it with floats. So for example, imagine we have a string, for example, C. Actually, I can't see anything above, so let's call it D. And well, imagine we had a string D equal to 2.54. Well, then to parse the string into a float, we'll just have to say, okay, D1 is equal to strconv.parseFloat, and then we're just gonna pass the string that we want to parse, in this case D, and then the bit size. So we can choose either 64 or 32. This time let's choose 64. And now let's, for example, declare another string that is actually a float of 4.77. Let's convert it to a float, and 64 bits. Let's print out the sum of them, so D1 plus E1, and let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, same problem as before. I forgot to the errors here. So now it should work, and as you can see, we get 7.31. which is in fact the sum between the two values that we had. So with this said, I think we have covered enough about all the most important functions of the strconv package and also the how to make scanners in Golang. Now let's actually make a practical example of this. So let's suppose, let's write practical example. And that is, let's suppose we want to create a program that asks the user for two values, two integer values, and prints out their sum. So how can we do that? Well, and so first of all, let's actually print an initial message that will welcome the user to the program. So for example, welcome to the addition program. Insert two integers, integer, okay, and we will return their sum. So actually I forgot an L there. Okay, and now we're gonna create our scanner with io.new scanner os.stdin, and then we're gonna scan for the first time, and then call it the first value input 1, and then say the value that we scanned inside input 1. Actually, let's first say println insert first value, okay, like this. Then what we're gonna do is gonna say then insert second value and scan again, and then set input 2 equal to the new text that we scanned. Once we've done this, we are ready to convert the two values that we get. So we're going to say convert the values that we got from string to integer. And to do this, we use this strconv, basically ParseInt function. So what we do is we say converted input 1 is going to be equal to, actually, and the error that we're going to ignore, going to be equal to strconv.parseInt, and then we're gonna inside set input 1 10 64, and the same way we're gonna paste it down there, but we're gonna replace the ones with 2's basically, and in this case 2, we're gonna set okay this equal to 2, and then in the end we're gonna just print line the converted input 1 plus the converted input 2. So there's sum. So let's see if the program works. And as you can see here, oh actually I should have used, just to make it a little bit better looking, I should have used the print function instead of the println function there. So what I'm going to do is, okay, and so let's substitute println with print, and now let's see if the program looks better. Okay, so as you can see, it's return value, for example, 22 and then 33, and we'll get 55. So this is an example of a program that takes two values and returns their sum. So now, as an exercise, you can try and write a program. So exercise. So the first one will be write a program that takes three values and returns their product, three integer values. So that you're going to use the ParseInt. The second one is write a program that takes three floats, actually say two floats, and returns their sum. And the third program that you can try is write a program that takes a name as an input and then prints out hello name to the console. So with this said, I think we also said enough about user input, and in the next video we'll start looking at comparison operators as well as logical operators.